Today's episode is brought to you by Idle Courses Academy. If you are looking to transition into the corporate instructional design space, you need the right guidance to do so. Dr. Sargent and her team have done an amazing job with focusing on what's important to be a corporate instructional designer, like storyboarding, ID models and theories, authoring tools, project management tactics, and more. They even cover how to make your resume and portfolio stand out from the crowd and have an impressive completion rate with their students working at organizations like Google, Salesforce, GM, Uber, Walmart, and Amazon. Also, you won't be going through this journey alone. You'll be studying alongside other aspiring instructional designers, as well as working with experienced mentors and coaches. And as an added bonus, you'll get a free copy of my ebook, What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. So check out the industry-recognized program that's showing up on more job descriptions as preferred training and education by going to idlecourses.com/academy. Next enrollment is from January 10th to January 21st, and the Become an Idle Challenge starts January 10th to January 14th. If you enroll before the 14th, by the way, you'll get the Genially for Idols bonus. So check out Idle today, and now let's start the show. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year! Welcome on into your favorite Learning Nerd podcast. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm an author, podcaster, blogger, and instructional designer. My purpose is to help you along your instructional design journey and to make the online learning experience meaningful for you and for your students. And you can find all my information over at drlukehobson.com. What is it about New Year's resolutions that make them so difficult? You hear all the time about people accomplishing their goals, from finding a new job, landing a promotion, buying a house, but actually hearing about a New Year's resolution accomplishment is far and few between. Well, why? Why is that? It's because people aren't comfortable with change. But you know who is? Instructional designers. Our job focuses on learning. And what is learning? It's the process of change. Yes, my friends, 2022 is upon us, and this is going to be your year because the nerdy power of instructional design can take you there. You just need someone to give you that push in the right direction and to have a kind of template to follow. On today's episode, I'll share with you my story of how I use learning to crush my New Year's resolution. And I had the most cliche goal of trying to lose weight and get healthier. The funniest thing, though, is that what I did, well, it worked, and I ended up losing 30 pounds of body fat, and I eventually competed in a natural bodybuilding show. If you want to see the before and after pictures, by the way, I'll put a link in the show notes just so that way you can have a visual, because it's honestly crazy. I'm still kind of in shock of how everything actually worked. So really, it's an insane tale, and the weight, it never came back. So clearly, I did something right and was able to make a permanent change in my lifestyle. I attribute this change, by the way, to why I'm able to have so many projects and juggle them all the time. The number one question I hear from you is, how do you have time to do all of these things with the book, your courses, and everything else? And really, I attribute that to being efficient with everything because I can think clearly because I live a healthy lifestyle. So whether you are looking to get healthier, learn a new language, play an instrument, or whatever your goal is, what I'm going to share with you is going to give you a few ideas for your own life and to help you hit your own New Year's resolution. So let's go back in time to give you the full perspective. The year was 2016. I was the creative resources manager for Southern New Hampshire University. My job was to design the resources and online learning communities for the Writing Center, the Peer Tutoring Center, and other areas of academic support. My SMEs were the deans and the directors for each area, and really, I couldn't complain. It was the start of my instructional design journey, and I didn't realize how significant the skills I was picking up were going to be so helpful in the future. At the same time, I was studying for my comprehensive exams, or comps, if you know them, if you have a PhD or a doctorate and you've gone through them before, and I was getting one step closer towards becoming Dr. Hobson. However, all was not well in my world. To get to my desk, I had to walk up several flights of stairs as I worked on the top floor of an old mill building. One day, walking up the stairs, I had to stop and catch my breath. I thought I was going to legitimately pass out from being winded because I couldn't tackle the stairs, and I was horrified. I was 27 years old. I was in the worst shape of my life, and at 5'6", I was clocking in at about 170 pounds. I had to suck in my waist to fit into my size 36-inch pants, and now I don't just worry about my appearance and how I look, but apparently I have to worry about not being fit enough to go upstairs. It was the wake-up call I needed, and since December was coming to an end, it made perfect sense to make this my New Year's resolution all about getting back in shape. The problem was, I had never really been in shape before, ever. I was consistently a bit heavy my entire life, and I wasn't really sure where to begin. I knew that setting my goal was important, but how to accomplish this goal was an entirely different story. Everything I had done before in the past felt like a yo-yo effort where I would lose 5 pounds and then gain them right back. Lose 10 pounds, gain 15 back. So I would never say that I was truly successful in making a change, but why? What was stopping me? At this point in time, a light bulb moment went off over my head. It was literally my job to help students with academic supports and to remove barriers for them. Could I, hypothetically, take what I was doing for my students and apply these lessons into my life? Well, there was only one way to find out, and the test began. So what's the first step I take when trying to help my students? I thought to myself. Well, it's always to identify the problem. Now, when it comes to health and fitness, there are two main parts of the equation: exercising and eating right. Yes, there are other elements as far as with coping with stress, getting enough sleep, and other important things, but the main two parts are moving enough and how much are you eating. What I'm about to describe next was a pivotal moment and something that you need to do to hit your resolution. I decided to take a step back and reflect on my past mistakes with nutrition and fitness. I had enough data from my memories of trying to be healthier every single year and ended up failing. So I thought to myself, why did I fail? What could I improve upon? What were my challenges? Instead of rushing through this, I wanted to do it right and had to answer these questions before moving on. For me, trying to change too much too soon ended up burning me out. It's why I could handle a spark for about a few weeks and then ended up quitting. I didn't give myself any ramp-up time to get situated. The change was happening out of a desire of frustration and not from a place of wanting to become better. I equate what most folks do during this resolution as if we would throw students into a course with nothing to prepare them. There's no orientation, there's no start here section, there's no welcome message from the instructor or time to connect with their fellow peers. Instead, we just throw them to the wolves and hope that everything that they're going to be doing along the way with no guidance and no support is somehow going to magically work out. Knowing how I developed resources and courses, it became clear to me that these elements are so necessary for students for them to succeed. So why on earth am I expecting better results in my personal life by just trying to grind it out? I took my life and thought about it in a way as if I were designing a course. What are my main goals? Can I break these down into smaller pieces? How will I know that I'm on the right track? What form of evidence is going to show me that I'm making progress and I can use the momentum from there? How will I practice these skills and not feel disappointed if I don't get them right the first time? How will I consume content that will keep me engaged and will stop me from becoming frustrated? If any of these questions sound familiar to you, well, they should if you've been following this podcast, because essentially, I just described backward design. I started with the outcomes, then the assessments, the activities, and the content. Yes, I am nerdy enough to take an instructional design model and turn it into a framework for my life to follow. This was a crucial moment in time, though, because for the first time ever, I had a real plan. I was setting real goals and breaking them down into further smaller goals. If my main goal was to lose 30 pounds, well, how am I going to get there? Well, I need to learn how to eat healthier. How am I going to do this? Well, I need to learn how to cook tasty yet healthy recipes. And how am I going to do this? Well, I need to practice using new ingredients and finding simple to follow videos on YouTube and testing them out. Everything that I did had a plan to follow with simple checkpoints along the way to ensure that I wasn't falling off track. Before, if the scale had gone up, I would try twice as hard in the gym. And now I can actually pinpoint precisely what I ate, what I did, and it would give me a clearer depiction of exactly what is happening. So let's get back to the two main factors for weight loss: eating right and exercise. I reflected upon the past moments with doing both things, and I found that my main issue was sustainability with quote-unquote healthy foods. My idea of what was, once again, quote-unquote clean eating was chicken, broccoli, brown rice, and some other kind of vegetable. I ate this same meal so much that I couldn't eat it anymore. But at the time, I thought that these foods were going to be my ticket to a better lifestyle. If I just stick with these boring magical foods, I'll finally have the body I want. But what ended up happening? Well, after eating the same foods for 4 days in a row, I was mentally exhausted, and I caved in to going crazy on the weekends. So from Monday through Thursday, super strict regiment. And then all of a sudden, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I just did whatever I wanted. I told myself that I deserved a cheat meal, and unfortunately, this would always turn into like 6 cheat meals. And then, disappointed in my behavior, I decided to double down when Monday came around again, and then I was repeating this vicious cycle of just hating myself. I don't think I ever realized just how unhealthy I was being while trying to become healthy. Imagine that. Now, knowing that the main issue of my mistakes were around strict eating of boring foods, this gave me an idea of a new problem to solve. The problem wasn't defined as trying to stick with my super strict eating. The problem was that I didn't know enough about food to create healthy recipes on my own. Truthfully, I had never learned how to cook, besides a few standard meals here and there. Every time I had looked up a typical diet of an athlete or a bodybuilder, it was the normal foods of protein shakes, oatmeal, eggs, chicken, broccoli, brown rice, and so on. But the truth of the matter is that I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't a bodybuilder. I was an overweight guy trying to not pass out walking up 4 flights of stairs. So maybe, just maybe, I should expand my knowledge of food and determine what I enjoy eating. And if I were able to create new healthy dishes I enjoyed, then maybe I wouldn't find eating to become such a chore. After scouring the pages of YouTube, I stumbled upon some folks in the fitness industry who tried to make cooking tasty, yet as keep it simple stupid as possible. It was an absolute godsend as I stumbled down the rabbit hole of simple dishes that were low in calories yet incredibly tasty. Learning about new ingredients and spices and sauces and everything else gave me a shot of adrenaline in the arm that I so desperately needed, because I could actually assess my learning from my satisfaction with how I was cooking. It wasn't some mystery gray area. Either I enjoyed the dish and the cooking process, or I didn't. Either it tasted good or it didn't. I decided to learn how to cook and gave myself leniency on exercising. I didn't care at all if I worked out or not, which is something that is so crazy to say out loud. I just wanted to get better with eating healthy and sticking with foods that made me feel good. I practiced and applied the skills I was learning about for weeks. All the while, I made sure to incorporate reflecting every Sunday to think about what went well and what I could improve upon. It allowed the information to sink in a bit more, trying to recall from memory what I learned about. This, of course, reinforced my points and further drove my ambition. I went through this routine for weeks and ended up losing quite a bit of weight just by eating right. Shocking, right? Well, during this time frame, I also started to build a support system. I knew that one major factor for my students succeeding was by building a community for them. It was clear from their interactions within their communities that the positivity and the levels of support get them going for their academic journeys, and I knew that I needed this same structure in my life. My wife has always been my biggest supporter, but she was also deeply invested into health and fitness. She was actually on her way towards competing in her first bodybuilding show, and it was awesome to see someone right in front of me work so hard to achieve their results. The important thing to know, though, was that I acknowledged the fact that we were on different levels. To put it into academic terms, she was about to graduate with her master's, and I was just applying for my bachelor's. While I could learn tips and techniques from her, I was well aware that she was far more advanced than I was, and not everything would apply to my life. I actually found a Facebook group built around a fitness podcast that I listened to with like-minded people, and it was refreshing to have a community to talk to without being told that I needed to buy XYZ product or supplement. On the days that I was motivated, I would post to talk about my accomplishments. On the days that I was disappointed, I would talk about my failures. I was pretty much an open book with them as I listened to the podcast host every day, and I felt like their listeners were my buds. Yes, these were online friends that I never met in person, but they became my close fitness friends who I always confided in, and I was vulnerable with them. This community aspect, though, it was so helpful, and I didn't realize it until months later in my fitness journey, just how much I worked with them and relied on their support to get me going for some of the tough days. After the objective was met of conquering my awful eating habits, it was then time to move on to the next issue, sticking with a workout. Once again, I drew on my past experiences and I used this data to inform my next steps. I constantly started and stopped with exercise routines and workouts. Some of them I enjoyed, and others of them I hated with a fiery passion. Reflecting upon this now, it's just silly, but my mentality was that if I stick it out for long enough, the results are going to come. Taking what I learned about my approach with nutrition, I decided to do the same with exercising. I needed to master the fundamentals and the basics before I felt ready to tackle something extreme. The problem with learning the basics of exercise is vulnerability. I did not want to go to the gym and look like a newbie floundering around from machine to machine. I had been to gyms before and I felt like I knew a thing or two about a thing or two, but trying to admit that I'm going back to the basics and that I didn't learn properly the first time, it was a huge barrier to face. Instead of signing up for a gym right away, I decided to work out from home. If I can learn the right movements and the basics in my living room, well then, hey, who cares? No one's watching me fall over or make mistakes. So what I ended up doing is that I actually went out and I bought P90X. Yeah, if you remember those old DVDs probably sitting somewhere in your closet or your attic with that goofy guy, Tony Horton, it was those things. That's what I bought. And at the time, this program made so much sense to me because I wanted to do something in my house and I needed someone to teach me about the proper form and the basics. I was able to follow along with each exercise and DVD, and at the same time, I recorded myself just to see my form and to see if I was getting better every single week. I was never, ever trying to compare myself to the rock stars on those DVDs. Instead, I was just comparing myself from week to week and my achievements. I just wanted to make it through the workouts without collapsing on the floor, and if I had to pause to catch my breath, well, no one was going to give me any grief for it, so I did when I had to. With slowly incorporating these at-home workouts into my life, along with incorporating my new cooking skills, the fat began to melt off. And before I knew it, 15 pounds had come and gone. My energy was through the roof, self-confidence began to build, and I was starting to get the reputation of being the healthy guy around my colleagues. And yes, I was finally able to go upstairs without passing out. After a few months of doing this, and yes, I did just say months, I knew that I was ready to take my game up to the next level. I want to quickly highlight the word months because I had already accepted that in order to make a permanent change in my life, learning the fundamentals was going to take time. Instead of making this a sprint, I thought about it like a marathon. When you applied to college, you knew it was going to take you 2 to 4 years to get your degree, and I approached trying to fix my life in the same manner. This isn't going to be one class and becoming done with it. I'm trying to design a whole new me, and this was going to take time. So after months of doing these things, I started to track my macros. Macros is short for the term macronutrients. All foods are made up of proteins, carbs, and fats. These are macros. And each macro correlates to a number of calories. In the health and fitness world, it's popular to track your macros in order to hit your goals. For someone looking to lose weight, you start with the appropriate number of macros and then shave a little bit off each week until you hit your goal. Knowing myself, I knew there was no way that I would just write this down by hand every day. I needed technology. I needed an app to help me with these calculations, and I chose an app called Avatar Nutrition since I followed the founders of the app on social media. We seemed like-minded with the same goals, so I gave it a try. This app was something new to me because it essentially was an app composed of adaptive learning and gamification. I know that almost all of you out there know about gamification, but maybe you've never heard of the term adaptive learning before. So adaptive learning is trying to meet your students where they are and adapt the content and difficulty with their progress. If a student is taking a math course and they are struggling with the problems, the AI would instead give easier problems. Depending upon how the student performs after that, would then determine the appropriate time to increase the difficulty, perhaps keep the same level of problems, or drop them down to a different level altogether. Now imagine doing this with nutrition. Let's say that my goal is to eat 1,900 calories a day with the right blend of proteins, carbs, and fats. If I hit my goal and I'm losing fat, the app will tell me to keep at it and not change a thing because my body is responding. If I miss my goal or if I hit my goal yet my body doesn't respond properly, the app can adjust for the change of calories. I had never experienced a type of AI and adaptive learning used in the way that the app was doing it before. I ended up becoming hooked because it became a game. And each week, I was actually looking forward to trying to be able to write down all my calories and then to see my progress and to see what happens. And then, of course, the app, being a bit gamified, would congratulate me on my wins and it would give me supportive messages at the same time when I stumbled. After a few months of using Avatar Nutrition, I emailed them my before and after pictures. I quickly received a message from the CEO asking if they could use it in their promotional materials, and sure enough, I was on their website under their success stories for quite a while, and this actually pushed me to try even harder. Now, in the story, we were about 6 months in or so trying to do this from memory. So, once again, though, 6 months. This change took time. While I was obsessed with my progress, my wife was still crushing it. She had competed in multiple bodybuilding shows at this point, and that idea crept into my head of, could I actually do this? Could I step on stage someday? And if you have never seen a bodybuilding show before, let me be the first to say it's weird. It's not for everybody. I will admit that. You bust your butt for years to step on stage to basically flex in a bathing suit, and you are flexing to a crowd of spectators cheering you on. This also comes with lots and lots of spray tan. So if you're wondering in my before and after pictures of like what happened and why am I so dark, yeah, it's like 3 coats of spray tan. It actually does make you pop underneath the stage lights. Don't ask me why, but it's 100% true. It actually does happen. So anyway, after going to some of my wife's competitions and seeing the men compete, I knew that I wasn't that different compared to some of the guys on stage. Don't get me wrong, some were absolute insane freak athletes that I will never, ever, ever compare myself to them, but those were also most likely the professionals. I could probably get away with competing in like a newbie class, right? So with everything I had taught myself so far, I knew at this point in time, I needed a teacher. I managed to get far beyond my expectations with just teaching myself and taking my time and measuring my progress. But in order to take the next step, I needed someone to show me the ropes. And I contacted my wife's bodybuilding coach named Jenna George. She was my kind of teacher, supportive, positive, yet firm. Her guidance and tutelage helped me to get into the gym and started to move the weights around in a way that actually made sense. I wasn't aimlessly flopping from one station to another. There was a clear plan and a goal and a spreadsheet. And as you know, I love data and spreadsheets. So I could see how much weight to use, how many sets, how many reps, how long my breaks should be, and everything else that comes with it. I wrote down each workout and reported back every Tuesday for a new adjustment in my plan. Before long, my goals evolved. It wasn't just about losing 30 pounds in total anymore. It was about pushing my limits, having energy to tackle new challenges, and enjoying life with my partner. I found a new passion in eating right and working out, and if you had told me that a year before all of this happened, I would have told you that you're insane. Can people actually enjoy eating right and working out? But they have to be so miserable. And it's so time-consuming, and things are so awful, right? Well, as it turns out, it actually can be enjoyable if you take the time, if you find the small wins, and enjoy the learning process. So many of us in education, we love to learn. And the secret for me to getting in better shape was to find the connection between education, nutrition, and exercising. And that's what made everything come together. I started to share this passion with the world by making a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel, and courses all around being healthy. I didn't know it at the time, but all of these projects became the teachable moments for helping me to start this podcast and blog and YouTube channel and everything else that you know nowadays. Back then, I even started to write a book about how to get in shape. It never saw the light of day, but it still was like a solid 50 pages or so. So anyway, the point is, without my health and fitness New Year's resolution from years ago, you wouldn't be listening to me talk right now. My passion for being healthy led to the first podcast, which led to me knowing how to make this podcast. And you can probably find those past episodes somewhere online. I have no idea. I'm sure they're out there, but if you do find them, just FYI, I sound very different. I'm not as confident. I clearly don't know what I'm doing, but hey, I was stepping outside of my comfort zone and I was trying something new. So in the end, if you're wondering, yes, I did hit my goal of 30 pounds. It took 9 months. Eventually, I went on to compete in a few bodybuilding shows and took home 3rd and 4th place, which I am still ecstatic about to this day. I'm not sure if I ever want to compete again, but, I wouldn't rule it out. As you heard from my story, it was a slow and steady pace. I utilized reflecting on my experiences to inform me of my decisions. I gave myself time to practice, make mistakes, and assess from there. I applied what I learned to see real evidence of my progress. I shared my wins and losses within a community for that moral support. I never gave up because the proper systems were in place to ensure that when I definitely stumbled and when I fell, well, I could get myself back up. So whatever your goal is, follow my steps. Design your plan as an educator. Figure out the optimal learning experience for you and create that environment. Set goals and break them down further and further and further until you can't anymore. Determine a way to monitor your progress and adapt when necessary. Build a network with the right people to support you. Practice and apply your skills to real-world problems. Evaluate what you have accomplished at the end of each week and celebrate those wins and find ways around those barriers. And that, folks, is how to crush your New Year's resolution. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it because I know New Year's resolutions are so challenging. So if this helps somebody out, then please feel free to share away. Let's make 2022 our year. Subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel if you haven't already, and check out Dr. Luke Hobson for everything else I produce on the internet about instructional design. And once again, thank you for Idle Courses Academy for sponsoring this show. That, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have for you. Stay nerdy out there. I'll talk to you next time.